Contracts at Celtic are coming closer to an end. This season we see Karamoko Dembele's future in question, but he's the only one. Next season, however, there is 4 key players who could be out the door. We don't know what's going to happen. We've had no updates as to whether or not they're going to have a contract extension, and it's left some room for debate on social media, you could say. So let's have a look at these 4 players. Let's have a look at what the situation is, and I'm just going to give my honest opinion on whether or not I believe they should be extended with a contract at Celtic, or we let them go. Before we go any further with the video, please make sure to drop down below and hit like and subscribe. It's much appreciated for more news, updates, for more opinion pieces, whatever you like. Please make sure to hit it. We're nearly there to 33,000 subscribers. And yeah, let's talk about these contracts at Celtic. So it was raised on Twitter yesterday by Everything Celtic, shout out to them, that the end of the 22-23 campaign will see the expiry of 4 players' contracts at Celtic, and not just 4 reserve players or 4 anybody's, 4 players who over the past few years have been key players for Celtic to different capacities and different extents. However, 4 players whose names have been in and around the first team for the last few years. Those contracts will be coming to an end, and the point was raised, okay, what happens? What do we do next? What happens with these players? Do we extend their stay at Celtic? Do we let them go? It created a lot of discussion in the replies below the tweet. Now, the 4 players at question, well, let's run through them very quickly. We've got James Forrest, Nir Bitton, Christopher Jullien, and Tom Rogic. All 4 of them at the age of 30 and 29, respectively. They're players who are at that point in their career now where they will probably start to slow down a little bit. You know, football is always becoming a younger game. We're seeing teenagers break into the biggest teams around the world, and a lot of players are dubbed Finnish when it hits that age of 30. So these are 4 players who, you know, will rightfully so be questioned. Now, to what extent should they be questioned? And here we are, we're going to talk about them individually and whether or not they should stay, because there was a few replies to this tweet that had me wondering. There was a few replies to this tweet that were making me think, right, we're being a bit reactionary. I think we're being a little bit OTT. There was one that was at the top of the replies, one that created a little bit of discussion and gathered some attention, that said, struggle to really justify keeping any of them, as none of the 4 really fit into Ange's way of playing. High press for 90 minutes. Beaton really is underrated in his values a number of positions for us. Probably keep him. Rogic is a luxury player but doesn't offer any defensive aspect. Now, the thing I struggle with that tweet is, you know, 2 of the players, Nir Bitton and Tom Rogic especially, have shown they do fit Ange Postecoglou's team. In fact, they've been 2 vital players, I think, so far this season. Once again, I'll use the same phrase, to different capacities and different extents. Nir Bitton has been used mostly as a squad player. He's filled in when players have been injured, and he's been more about utility than anything else. Which is fair enough, because I think the days of Nir Bitton being a regular starter at Celtic finished a long time ago, especially when he was starting to be used as a centre-back under previous managers. Tom Rogic, on the other hand, he's been a vital player under Ange Postecoglou's system and been one of the most enjoyable, I think, to watch in Ange Postecoglou's system. Now, I understand that there is some, let's say, anxiety towards these players fitting into the system when we've seen how they play in the past. You know, Rogic and Bitton especially, they're big guys. They're a bit slower on the eye. They aren't quick. They aren't the players you expect to press the ball at every opportunity. But Tom Rogic has been vital in that midfield three. He's been creative, he's scored goals, he's made goals, his touch has been vital in tight areas when teams try and get tight to us. And I think that he's offered so much to us this season. So I think there has been a little bit of an unfair judgment from some people in the replies to that tweet, for example. But let's have a look at the 4 players and whether or not I think they will stay at the club. Now, can I stress right now that this is how I'm looking at it realistically? This isn't how I'm looking at it how I want it to be. You know, I think what you want and what you get are 2 very different things. That's, you know, a fact in life. And a lot of people will probably want some people to stay and some people to go. However, I'm going to look at it from the shoes of Ange Postecoglou, the eyes of Ange Postecoglou, and I'm going to try and think of it how I think it will go down in real life. The first player to talk about, James Forrest, a guy who over the past 10 years at Celtic has been, he's been there. He's always been there, and he's been vital in being there. You know, I think there has always been questions as to whether or not he's been at it or not, and whether he's been good enough, and his consistency has always been questioned. But there has been seasons and there has been times where he has been vital. And like, I've never really been the biggest James Forrest fan, but I will admit that he's given his fair share of moments to the club, and he's given his 100% to the club. You know, there's no doubt about that. I think you can question his ability, and if he ever lived to early potential, etc., etc. But you know, you think back to, especially, I think it was 2017-18, the campaign he had that season. You know, he has had some great moments in a Celtic jersey. Will he have many more to come? I don't know. James Forrest is the one out of the 4 players that I think will have to have a lot of conversations with the manager. And he'll have to see what his role at the club is going to be and whether or not he's going to be happy with that role at the club. His days of being a constant starter in the team are over. I have no doubts about that. Liel Abada, Dyson Maeda, Jota are 3 wingers, just to name straight away, who are there to play over him at every single calling, I think, now. And that's not to say that Forrest is finished, that's not to say that he's rotten, it's just to say that I think time has progressed past James Forrest, and the new manager has his own players, has a younger breed of players, and players who have been more reliable and ultimately more fit than James Forrest since Postecoglou has come through the door. So Forrest, I think, has a lot of conversations with the manager to go. Ultimately, I think he'll stay at the club. I know he's got another year. And one thing that we need to factor into all 4 of these players is how next season goes. We're judging it off how they are right now. But for all we know, Forrest could be rotten next season. Bitton could leave at the end of this season. Jullien could leave at the end of this season. And Rogic could voice that he wants to go back to Australia. They're just 4 hypothetical situations, but they very much could happen. So Forrest, you know, might do nothing over the next 12 months to suggest he should stay at the club. However, I think for his sheer presence as a Celtic player over the past decade or so will be enough to get him a new contract, and it will be enough to let Ange Postecoglou sit down and go, okay, we'll offer you this. You won't have as many minutes, you might not have much of an impact on the field, but you're still here, you can stay here, there's a place for you at Celtic. I think that could be the direction for Forrest. He's ultimately going to be useful coming off the bench until he's fully done, but he showed glimpses against Livingston, etc., that there is still a bit of a player there. So if he can keep showing those glimpses, I think he'll do enough for that. Would I personally extend his contract if I was the manager? I don't think I would. I think I would let him move on. I don't know what his options outside of Celtic will be. I don't think the level gets any higher for Forrest than Celtic. So I think that there will be a real conversation between the player and manager as to what his role at the club will become post 2023. And then there will be a place for him in some capacity here. A reduced capacity, as I said, but I think there will be something. I do reckon he'll end up staying. Tom Rogic, 29 years of age. He's been very, very good this season, I think. I think this is the easiest one of the 4. I think he'll stay at the club. As long as he keeps performing to the level that we've seen him most of the time this season, I don't see any reason why he would go. Now, I know that on the eye, as I already said, he might not be that Ange Postecoglou type pressing player. He's not like running around like a headless chicken or whatever, which I'm not saying none of our players do run around like headless chickens, but you know, he doesn't do all that running that you see from other players like maybe Rio Hatate and the forwards especially. But look, he's done more than enough this season to warrant a longer stay at Celtic, and I think if he keeps that up over the course of this season and next season, there'll be no doubt in my mind that Ange Postecoglou will want to keep him a fellow countryman, an Australian international, someone that he's worked with in the past. I'm not saying that there's a sense of favouritism there and there'll be a nepotism to keep him around the club, but I think that, you know, he's done enough to stay, and I think that Ange Postecoglou has been very happy with what he's seen of Tom Rogic. For me, it's the one that has the littlest discussion. Right now, I don't see why his contract wouldn't get extended, and to be honest, it might get extended at any time in the coming months, I think. Nir Bitton. Now, this is a player that divides a lot of opinion amongst the Celtic support. We know that. He's someone who has a lot of fans, but probably a lot more haters. This season, I think he's done a really good job at turning a lot of those haters towards the more of a fan side. I think that he's had a lot of good appearances for the club this season, a lot of reliable performances, but we have still seen flashes of that unreliable Nir Bitton. And Nir Bitton we've been so used to over the past, 3-4 years. But I think he's done a lot of good to try and put that behind him. Once again, a player that I think will end up staying at the club. I think that right now, we don't have enough depth when it comes to players like him. You know, a defensive midfielder, someone who can come in and be a general in front of the back line. We've got Callum McGregor, who of course holds that role so well at the moment, but when McGregor needs to move forward or he's out the team, we don't have many options. You look at James McCarthy, for example, he's not the ideal option for Celtic. So right now, until there's someone else, I also think that Nir Bitton could be another one of these players in which we offer a contract in the coming months. Another guy who Ange Postecoglou has spoke very highly of as well. I'll be honest in saying, another player who I've, over the past few years, not been a big fan of, but this season, he's done a lot of good work. And until we build in that area, he's someone who I think could be good use in and around the squad. And another factor is, just like James Forrest and also Tom Rogic, someone who's been around the club for a long time too. Once again, doesn't need to necessarily be room for sentimentality, but it also helps. It helps bring other players in. It helps them understand the side, helps them understand the club. And I think Nir Bitton is someone who does that. So I think that he will stay as well. I think that the three we've spoke about so far are guys who are surefire to be offered contracts as long as things keep going the way they are. But there's one guy out of the four who I really do think will be away from Celtic come summer 2023, if not sooner. It breaks my heart to say it, but Christopher Jullien. I said this earlier before in a video. I don't think he's got a long time left at Celtic, and I don't think he's even going to have the chance to maybe show why he deserves more time at Celtic. I'm just looking at it realistically. And I know that there's a lot of Christopher Jullien fans who will not be happy to hear that sort of thing. I love Jullien as much as the next guy, and I want him to succeed, and I want him to get back into the Celtic side, but he's coming up 30 years of age. He's coming off the back of a horrendous injury that kept him on the sidelines for over a year. He's a guy that I don't quite know will be able to recover from that injury to fit into the Ange Postecoglou system, the pace of the Ange Postecoglou system. I'm just looking at it realistically and saying I don't think he's going to be a Celtic player for much longer. And if he is, I think it'll be to even below a reduced capacity. I think you'll be looking at him being an accessory to the side, to be quite honest. I would love for this dream comeback for Christopher Jullien, but he came on the park against Raith Rovers, remember, and he just looked slow, he looked clunky, he looked a bit discombobulated, if you like. And I know that that's a game that you should take with a pinch of salt, returning back for the first time from that big injury, but I really don't see it progressing much further for Christopher Jullien. A lot of people raise the point that, oh well, Carter Vickers is going to leave and someone has to come in to go beside Starfelt. Do you honestly believe that that's Jullien? Do you think that Ange's man for that is Jullien? Ultimately, he's going to have to sign another centre-back anyway. Whether it be Carter Vickers or not, another centre-half is going to have to come into Celtic. They're going to have to sign someone. We don't have a great amount of depth in that area. I honestly think that Stephen Welsh would be in the side before Christopher Jullien come the summer if Carter Vickers isn't here. I would love Jullien to stay, get better and better and be back to a Celtic first team player. Realistically, I don't see it happening. And if he isn't going this summer or before next summer, he will definitely leave at the end of 22-23, I think. And I hope he proves me wrong on that. But I just don't see him being a guy that gets into this team. Money will be spent on centre-halves for the betterment of the side. And I think Jullien is going to be a victim to that. And that's just realistic. If I could choose, if I could pray and ask for anything, it would be for Jullien to get back in the team. But I just don't see it happening. That'll do it then for today's video. I hope you have all enjoyed. Make sure to leave me your opinions in the comments below and I'll see how they fare up beside mine and see if we agree or disagree. It's the nature of football and a lot of people will be happy and unhappy about different things I've said. But realistically, that's what I think will happen with the expiring contracts at Celtic Football Club.